Well, this is probably what we get for electing a guy with a background in real estate. In a recent press conference, President Donald Trump, God, it's been 5 years and that still feels weird to say, announced his plan to turn Gaza into yet another Israeli strip mall. And to Trump's credit, he sat in a room full of hostile journalists and said his piece, but call that man Neo the way he was dodging questions.
This could be something that could be so bad.
Where do those people go in the meantime, Mr. President?
But more importantly than that is the people that have been absolutely destroyed that live there now can live in peace.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu couldn't keep that smirk off his face to save his life. Man looked like a kid in a candy store. Christmas came early for him this year. Wait, no, Jews. As far as concrete details about their plan, we don't really have any yet. Probably won't for a very long time, as troop movements are generally something you don't like to publicize. But I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Israel already has plans in motion, as do most of the powers within the region, either for or against this plan. And despite the way it's being cast in the media, I have a funny feeling that a lot of them are a lot more pro this plan than they're going to make out. And I think the media is really not going to want to acknowledge that because they're going to want to cast this as Trump personally engaging in imperialism. If you told me that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the King of Jordan, and the President of Egypt sat behind closed doors and tacitly gave Trump approval to go ahead with this plan, I would actually believe you. And I believe Trump when he says that people actually agree with him here.
And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble.
As much as I know the media is going to make it look otherwise. I don't like admitting that. But you can feel free to Google Black September for yourself if you'd like to know why the regional powers probably feel this way. Why the other Muslim and Arab countries in the region will more than likely side with Israel over Palestine. Or at least over Gaza. On top of the fact that Israel is just a better trading partner for Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and even Iran. I did make a video about this war when it first broke out. But I have tried to keep my opinions on the individual sides close to the vest, because I know it tends to spark a lot of emotions within people. But the sad reality of this conflict as a whole, and the sad reality of what we saw yesterday with Donald Trump's announcement, is that it's very banal. All that we're truly seeing are the powers of the world and the powers of this region acting exactly how we should expect them to. Despite neoliberals casting Donald Trump as some kind of an outlier in American politics, I have found his early slew of policies to, if anything, be a bit of a return to form for American policy, at least if you're willing to look long term. Trump did not need to hijack the US government to convince them to invade the Middle East. There was no need, I promise you. And I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that we still would have gotten around to it eventually, even if Kamala had been elected. Meanwhile, Israel and Netanyahu's administration specifically are cozying up to Trump and the Republicans more than ever, and that has seriously been paying off dividends. I mean, there's another 2 years before the congressional election where the Democrats might be able to gain back some power. Trump is basically unquestioned until then. And Israel can do a hell of a lot in 2 years. And as for the Palestinians, they are, as well, taking the news exactly as you would expect. Exactly as I would expect.
ما بهاجرش من غزة.
ليش؟
لا.
عشان هيك بدك تعمرنا واحنا موجودين على هذا الارض، ما فيش فيها انه لازم نطلع عشان تعمرنا مقابل احنا ما نطلع.
والله بده يهجرونا وين بدنا نروح؟ احنا هنا ابياتنا واجدادنا واولادنا، اولادنا لسه ما دخلناهمش في البلاد هذه، كيف بدهم يهجرونا؟
I pity them. Ultimately, most of them were born long after the Jordanian civil war and are still having to deal with the global fallout and stigma that comes from it. And the people of Gaza themselves ultimately have been the greatest victims of the violence inflicted by Hamas, the gang culture, and the religious fundamentalism that has swept the region. I don't blame them at all for not wanting to leave. Why? So that Egypt can put them on a bus and ship them out to some barren stretch of wasteland that they didn't feel like developing themselves? So that Iraq can ship them into a field somewhere and let them starve? So they can be shipped to Qatar and live in camps alongside the rest of the slave class? No, absolutely not. Why would they? Of course they're going to stay. Of course they're going to fight. They are in the land they know. But this process never ends well for the colonized. It's a sad story. One more tale of human tragedy and conquest. But don't let the media lie to you, though. There are a couple of things that I think are going to be important for all of us to keep in mind going forward. Number one, this is not just Donald Trump's war. It is not just Donald Trump's imperialism. This is a region that has been at war for thousands of years, and it will continue to be at war for thousands of years after you and I are dead. That's part of a larger story of incentive structures and empire building and the ideological meeting of the East and West, and it never ends well for the colonized. But do not limit your thinking on this situation to the limits of the U.S. culture war. Number two, France and the UK have already come out to condemn this action by the United States, but they don't actually care about Gaza. Don't believe that for a second. Europe's premier empire builders are mad because they never had the stones or the logistics to do this themselves, and that is the only reason they are mad. They do not care about Palestine. They never did. Do not believe them when they say that they do. And number three, and this is especially important if you feel like you already knew the first two, Hamas are not the good guys. I am so tired of having to explain this to white liberals. If it bleeds, it leads, as the old journalistic saying goes. And don't get me wrong, you'd be inhuman to not feel bad when the media space is inevitably pumped full of poverty porn of the Palestinians walking their own trail of tears. But the people of Palestine who are suffering under colonialism, as well as Hamas, and Hamas, two different things. Needs to be clear. Two different entities, okay? Just really need us all to process that. I am so tired. I wanted to make a gaming video today, but that's all that I have for you, tragically. This is just a cluster, man. This is just a mess. But it's our mess, Americans. Ah, sweet America. This is our mess. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. This is a situation where discourse is going to be the best thing we can possibly be doing and engaging in. Making sure that information is able to flow freely and everyone has a sober take on what's happening here is going to be extremely important. So please leave me some comments. Let me know your takes. Discuss with one another. Please, let's all just try to prevent deaths more than anything else. Thank you guys so much for watching. You have been amazing. I have been Richard. And I will see you in the next news cycle.